Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Paranormal and Historic Locations and Legends. I am your host, Nick Muley. I don't know why, but the brightness is really bright for some reason. I don't know what the issue is. Let's see if I can fix it. Okay. All right, it's a little bit better, but close enough. Um, for tonight, we're going to be talking about two locations again. It's going to be kind of unusual for me of what I've chosen. I got a very short one, and I also got a pretty long one. Uh, we're going to be talking about the two locations I have for tonight are two places located both in England. They are known as they're called what I think how you pronounce this Wykehurst Place and Blenheim Palace. So both I got to be honest. When I looked up these places and found out the history of them, especially the first place that we'll be looking at, I could not actually find a lot of history on this place, but I did manage to find some info on it. But I think it'll be Blenheim. We'll be focusing on most of tonight. So I'm gonna get the slideshow ready. So give me 1 second. And also, I apologize from last week that I had to cancel at the last minute because I was not feeling so good. So the bottom line is we're here. I'm back in business, so we could get right down to business. And finally, before I do get started, as some of these other shows have spoken out, for those that don't know, please go to savewaverlyhills.com. There's a lot of tension going on right now uh, between the owners of Waverly as well as this nonprofit organization. So please go to savewaverlyhills.com to please give whatever, even if it's not much. I think they would really appreciate it. So, but anyways, let's get started. Let me see here for a second. I just want to make sure this time I got the screen shared because that's happened without me noticing. Okay, so the first place we'll be talking about is a location called Wykehurst Palace. You can pretty much clearly see. Okay, I'm looking on the phone right now. Looks like the screen is showing, so that's a good thing. And like I said, you can obviously tell it's a very Gothic revival looking structure. And again, this is the first place that, again, surprisingly, despite a location like this, I could not find too much history on it as far as I know, that is. Uh, and even more strangely, I couldn't even find a lot of ghost stories associated with this place, though that doesn't mean it's not haunted. They probably just, something tells me most likely they probably just don't want all the publicity on it. I'm going to see who's watching right now. Hey, Sydney, what's going on? So, moving forward, again, you guys are going to be quite surprised by how short this is. I really wish I had more. Okay, here we go. So, Wykehurst Place or Park is a Gothic revival mansion in Bolney, West Sussex, England, resembling more the Chateau of the Loire than an English manor house. It was originally designed and built in 1871 by architect Edward Middleton Barry for the banker of German extraction, Henry Huth, member of Parliament, a bibliophile and collector in paintings. Now, the Huth family were very well known in Sussex, Kent, and in Surrey. Again, I apologize for mispronouncing certain words. So let's see. So I almost lost my place there. But today it is now owned by the Holy Cross Priory. Charles. Okay, I messed up there for a sec. Charles Frederick. Whoops, I'm sorry. Charles Frederick Huth owned Oakhurst Manor in Tunbridge Wells. At the time of its construction, which was from 1871 to 1874, it cost 35,000, not 3,500, 35,000 pounds. And the building has been described as surely one of the most unlikely houses anywhere in Sussex. Its turrets, arches, conical roofs, and many architectural devices give it the appearance of a fairy tale mansion. The East Lodge fronts the main London Brighton Road. The large black entrance gates are fashioned in wrought iron. Massive griffins with spread wings perch on either sides of the gates. The entrance to the property leads down a pebble drive to a grass patio surrounding the house, descending from a 280-foot terrace to a garden and lawn at the back. Unfortunately, now, as obviously Henry Huth did own this building for quite a while, but unfortunately not as long as he probably originally anticipated. Henry Huth died in 1878 and was buried in the churchyard of St. Mary's Magdalene's Church in the village, to which his son Edward gave a magnificent lich gate in 1905. He was the last member of the Huth family to reside there, in which he left Wykehurst Place in 1923. It was then used as a base for soldiers during World War II. And then in the mansion's exterior, decaying at the time of writing, Nicholas Pevsner observed in 1965 and grounds have appeared in a number of films dating back to the late 1960s, including What a Lovely War, Demons of the Mind, The Legend of Hell House. Oh, I forgot I have these posters here. Legend of Hell House, The Eagle Has Landed, and Holocaust 2000, among others. Now, today, the acclaimed Iranian writer and filmmaker Ebrahim Golstan has owned and lived in this park ever since the 1980s. And obviously, this is a picture, what it looks like today. I'm sorry to tell you this, but that actually concludes the first presentation. That's kind of the unfortunate part. Again, I really wish I was able to find more history on this place, but I could not find really too much. So we're going to go right to the next slide. I just want to take a quick shout out for those who are watching right now. Who do we got? Let's see. Hey, what's up, Bridget? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. All right, now let me just get the next one ready to go. This is pretty much the part I hate when it comes to StreamYard and trying to get the screen share for the presentation. All right, give me one. Okay, I think I got it. Actually, I'll just give a few shout outs here. Okay. Yep, I already said hi to Bridget. What's going on, Irene? Good to see you. All right, now let's try this. Now this next slideshow is going to be a hell of a lot longer. There's not really too much of ghost stories I was able to find with this place, but hopefully you guys will find it really interesting because there's a lot of history to this particular place. I mean, we may be here for a little bit over an hour, but not too much though. So the next location I have, which I got my guide right. I mean, my page is right here. Is Blenheim Palace. So Blenheim Palace is. Whoops, I went over too early. It is one of the most unique buildings in the United Kingdom. It is not only an old manor, but it is also a national monument and a mausoleum. Located in the Oxfordshire countryside, Blenheim Palace is also one of the most enormous palaces and significant buildings in the UK. Built in the first years of the 18th century, the history of Blenheim Palace is colorful, and it's most known for being the ancestral home of former British Prime Minister Sir Winston Churchill. Now, John Churchill, the first Duke of Marlborough, was a prominent military commander during the War of the Spanish Succession. He played an instrumental role in the monumental victory against the French king. I think I might have accidentally got part of the pictures mixed up. So again, I'm sorry about the mix-up. Oh, right, okay. So here we go. He played an instrumental role in the monumental victory against the French king, Louis. See, I can never remember these numbers. The XIV at the village of Blenheim in Bavaria. The French had vast plans to rule mainland Europe, which Britain and its allies, Austria and Denmark, were opposed to. Saying I did not mean to do that yet. The joint Austro-British Danish army clashed with the Franco-Bavarian army and fielded an enormous victory. Although the cost was high, victory was assured for Britain and its allies. John Churchill was regarded as a war hero, and Queen Anne ordered a palace to be built as a gift to John Churchill. That's when the real history of Blenheim Palace begins. Now, if you guys will excuse me, I do need to take a quick drink of water because this will be a while. So, anyways, playwright Sir John Vanbrugh designed Blenheim Palace in the English Baroque style, and it was constructed from 1705 to 1722. Wow, I just realized that place is now exactly, considering it was finished in 1722, it's exactly 200 years ago it was built. Let me see who's, just want to give a quick shout out. What's up, Mark? Although there were financial issues in the commitment to the construction of the palace, it was fully finalized in 1733 when the chapel was officially consecrated. The palace is named for the 1704 Battle of Blenheim, and thus ultimately after Blenheim, also known as Blenheim in Bavaria. It was originally intended to be a reward to John Churchill for his military triumphs. Designed in the rare and short-lived English Baroque style, architectural appreciation of the palace is as divided today as it was in the 1720s. It is unique in its combined use as a family home, mausoleum, and national monument. The estate given by the nation to Marlborough for the new palace was the Manor of Woodstock, sometimes called the Palace of Woodstock, which had been a royal Dempsey? I can't even say that word. In reality, little more than a deer park. Legend has obscured the manor's origins. King Henry I enclosed the park to contain the deer. Henry II housed his mistress, Rosamund Clifford, sometimes known as Fair Rosamund, there in a bower in Labyrinth, a spring in which she is said to have bathed remains named after her. It seems the unostentatious, I think that's how you say it. I'm terrible with these words. Okay, just lost. Okay, Hunting Lodge was rebuilt many times and had an uneventful history until Elizabeth I, before her succession, was imprisoned there by her half sister Mary I between 1554 and 1555. Elizabeth had been implicated in the Wyatt plot, but her imprisonment at Woodstock was short, and the manor remained in obscurity until bombarded and ruined by Oliver Cromwell's troops during the Civil War. When the just wanted to make sure I wasn't going ahead. When the park was being re-landscaped as a setting for the palace, the first Duchess wanted the historic ruins demolished, while Vanbrugh, an early conservationist, wanted them restored and made into a landscape feature. The Duchess, as so often in her disputes with her architect, won the day, and the remains of the manor were swept away. Okay, hang on one second. I don't know what happened here. Oh, okay, here we go. I had something messed up, but now got this all taken care of. Here we go. Somehow one of the pages got stuck. All right, just want to say, and I do apologize for anyone who has commented. Again, unfortunately, I can't see the comments while I'm doing this. Unfortunately, so that's why I'm kind of going back and forth between both pages, because for some odd reason I'm not getting all the comments from everywhere the show is broadcasting, so I have to go back and forth to see everybody. See, what's up, Howard? She's pretty. Yeah, I'm sure. Yes, she is. The architect selected for the ambitious project was a controversial one. The Duchess was known to favor Sir Christopher Wren, famous for St. Paul's Cathedral and many other national buildings. The Duke, however, following a chance meeting at a playhouse, is said to have commissioned Sir John Vanbrugh there and then. Vanbrugh, a popular dramatist, was an untrained architect who usually worked in conjunction with a trained and practical Nicholas Hawksmoor. Oops. Sorry, I almost lost my place there, but I know exactly where we are. Uh, the duo had recently completed the first stages of the Baroque Castle, Howard. This huge Yorkshire mansion was one of England's first houses in the flamboyant European Baroque style. The success of Castle Howard led Marlborough to commission something similar at Woodstock. Blenheim, however, was not to provide Vanbrugh with the architectural plaudits he imagined it would. The fight over funding led to accusations of extravagance and practicality of design. Many of these charges leveled by the Whig factions in power. He found no defender in the Duchess of Marlborough. Having been foiled in her wish to employ Wren, she leveled criticism at Vanbrugh on every level, from design to taste. In part, their problems arose from what was demanded of the architect. The nation, which was then assumed by both architect and owners to be paying the bills, wanted a monument, but the Duchess wanted not only a fitting tribute to her husband, but also a comfortable home. Two requirements that were not compatible in 18th century architecture. Finally, in the early days of the building, the Duke was frequently away on his military campaigns, and it was left to the Duchess to negotiate with Vanbrugh. More aware than her husband of the precarious state of the financial aid they were receiving, she criticized Vanbrugh's grandiose ideas for the I can't even say that word. I'm just going to move forward. Following their final altercation, Vanbrugh was banned from the site. In 1719, whilst the Duchess was away. In 1719, whilst the Duchess was away, Vanbrugh viewed the palace in secret. However, when his wife visited the completed Blenheim as a member of the viewing public in 1725, the Duchess refused his wife admission even to enter the park. Vanbrugh's severe mass Baroque used at Blenheim never truly caught the public imagination and was quickly superseded by the revival of the Palladian style. Vanbrugh's reputation was irreparably damaged, and he received no further truly great public commissions. For his final design, Seton Delaval Hall, which was hailed as his masterpiece, he used a refined version of the Baroque employed at Blenheim. He died shortly before its completion. Seeing, I just got a few. Hey, Tom, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Hey, Charlotte, good to see you. Charlotte, since you're watching, I thought I'd ask if you're familiar with Blenheim Palace. I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure you probably know it. I mean, it's considered one of the largest palaces in the UK. There are some ghost stories associated with this place, which I will get to well, maybe not shortly, but we'll get to in a little while, because there was a lot more history to this place than I expected. Certainly am indeed. Let's see. The precise responsibility for the funding of the new palace has always been a debatable subject, unresolved to this day. The palace, as a reward, was mooted within months of the Battle of Blenheim, at a time when Marlborough was still to gain many further victories on behalf of the country. That a grateful nation led by Queen Anne wished and intended to give their national hero a suitable home is beyond doubt. But the exact size and nature of that house is questionable. A warrant dated 1705, signed by the parliamentary treasurer, the first Earl of Godolphin, appointed Vanbrugh as an architect and outlined his remits. Okay, I think I might have went. No, Oops, sorry. That was my fault. Let's see, you thought this Howard? I thought this place is next to McDonald's near your house. Nope, it's sure as hell nowhere near my area, Howard. You have to go to the UK to see that. Okay, I kind of lost my spot there for a sec. Um, thanks, Howard. Oh, where was I? Oh, here we go. Okay. Appointed Vanbrugh as architect and outlined his remit. Unfortunately for the Churchills, nowhere did this warrant mention Queen or Crown. Now, the Duke of Marlborough contributed £60,000 to the initial cost when work commenced in 1705, which, supplemented by Parliament, should have been should have built a monumental house. Parliament voted funds for the building of Blenheim, but no exact sum was mentioned, nor provision for inflation or over budget expenses. Almost from the outset, funds were spasmodic. Queen Anne paid some of them, but with growing reluctance and lapses. Following her frequent altercations with the Duchess, after their final argument in 1712, all state money seized and work came to a halt. 220,000 pounds had already been spent, and 45,000 pounds were owing to workmen. The Marlboroughs were into exile on the continent and did not return until after the Queen's death in 1714. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. Oh, here we go. Okay. I don't know what happened here with the pages, but for some reason, I don't know if I was in a rush and some of the pages got mixed up, but fortunately it's not that big of a deal. So, we'll be fine. Now you're lost. I don't know what you mean by that, Howard, if you're lost. Um, anyways, on their return, the Duke and Duchess came back into a favorite court. The 64-year-old Duke now decided to complete the project at his own expense. In 1716, work resumed, but the project relied completely upon the limited means of the Duke himself. Harmony on the building site was short-lived, as in 1717, the Duke suffered a severe stroke and the thrifty Duchess took control. The Duchess blamed Vanbrugh entirely for the growing costs and extravagance of the palace, the design of which she had never liked. Following a meeting with the Duchess, Vanbrugh left the building site in a rage, insisting that the new masons, carpenters, and craftsmen brought in by the Duchess were inferior to those he had employed. The master craftsmen he had patronized, however, such as Grinling Gibbons, refused to work for the lower rates paid by the Marlboroughs. The craftsmen brought in by the Duchess under the guidance of furniture designer. Oh wait, hang on, sorry. Under the guidance of furniture designer James Moore and Vanbrugh's assistant architect Hawksmoor, completed the work in perfect imitation of the greater masters. On the death of the first Duke, let's see, here, hang on. Oh, I'm not surprised, Shard. Yeah, it definitely is. Like I said, I will get to that. Again, there's a lot of history to this place, but I will get to that near the end. I promise you guys. This episode, obviously, for this show is going to be a lot more about the history than a lot of the ghost stories. I mean, not everything I'm going to always, provide will have a ghost story to it, but this one does. It will take a while, and it's only we've only gone for about 20 minutes or so we got plenty of time. So anyways, on the death of the first Duke in 1722, as both of his sons were dead, he was succeeded by his daughter Henrietta. Went a little bit too far. This was an unusual succession and required a special act of parliament, as only sons can usually succeed to a dukedom. When Henrietta died, the title passed to Marlborough's grandson, Charles Spencer, Earl of Sunderland, whose mother was Marlborough's second daughter, Anne. Hang on one sec. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, guys. I forgot to. Okay, so right on the bottom, that was Charles Spencer, and then that's Anne right on the bottom. Following the Duke's death, completion of the palace and its park became the Duchess's driving ambition. Vanbrugh's assistant Hawksmoor was recalled, and in 1723 designed the Arch of Triumph, based on the Arch of Titus, at the entrance to the park from Woodstock. Hawksmoor also completed the interior design of the library. the ceilings of many of the state rooms, and other details in numerous other minor rooms and various outbuildings. Cutting rates of pay to workmen and using lower quality materials in unobtrusive places, the widowed Duchess completed the great house as a tribute to her late husband. The final date of completion is not known, but as late as 1735, the Duchess was haggling with Rysbrack over the cost of Queen Anne's statue placed in the library. In 1732, the Duchess wrote, "The chapel is finished, and more than half the tomb there is ready to set up." That's probably one of the oldest images I was actually, well, maybe not one of the oldest. I mean, it definitely was one of the oldest I was able to find, and that's actually probably one of my favorite images of like when it actually looked brand new shortly after its completion. Let's see. Okay, now I got, again, I don't know what happened here with the pages, so give me one. Bear with me for just a second. Let's see what we got here. Those are pretty ladies. Like that one holding the guitar needs to shave a little, but look at oh, great looking ladies. Howard. Oh boy. Trying to make this a comedy show, I could definitely tell. So, following the palace's completion, it became the home of the Churchill, later Spencer Churchill family for the next 300 years, and various members of the family have wrought changes to the interiors, park, and gardens. The palace chapel, as a consequence of the Duke's death, now obtained even greater importance. The design was altered by the Marlborough's friend, the Earl of Godolphin, who placed the high altar in defiance of religious convention against the west wall, thus allowing the dominating feature to be the Duke's gargantuan tomb and sarcophagus. Commissioned by the Duchess in 1730, it was designed by William Kent, and statues of the Duke and Duchess depicted as Caesar and Caesarina adorned the great sarcophagus. In bas relief at the base of the tomb, the Duchess ordered to be depicted the surrender of Marshal Tallard. However, I went too far. However, the theme throughout the palace of honoring the Duke did not reach its I can't even say that word. I'm sorry. Until the Dowager Duchess's death in 1744. Then the Duke's coffin was returned to Blenheim from its temporary resting place, Westminster Abbey, and husband and wife were interred together, and the tomb erected and completed. Now Blenheim had indeed become a pantheon and mausoleum. Successive dukes and their wives are also interred in the vault beneath the chapel. Other members of the family are interred at St. Martin's Parish Churchyard at Bladen, a short distance from the palace. Blenheim Palace, interestingly enough, was the birthplace of the first Duke's famous descendant, Winston Churchill, whose life and times are commemorated by a permanent exhibition in the suite of rooms in which he was born in 1874, marked K on the plan. Blenheim Palace was designed with all its principal and secondary rooms on the Piano Nobile. Thus, there is no great staircase of state. Anyone worthy of such state would have no cause to leave the Piano Nobile. Insofar as Blenheim does have a grand staircase, it is the series of steps in the great court which led to the north portico. I think that's how you say it. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce that word. Let's see here. There are staircases of various size and grandeur in the central block, but none are designed on the same scale of magnificence as the palace. James Thornhill painted the ceiling of the hall in 1716. It depicts Marlborough kneeling to Britannia and pro offering a map of the Battle of Blenheim. The hall is 67 feet high and remarkable chiefly for its size and for its stone carvings by Gibbons. Yet, in spite of its immense size, it is merely a vast anteroom to the saloon. The saloon was also to have been painted by Thornhill, but the Duchess suspected him of overcharging, so the commission was given to Louis Laguerre. This room is is an example of three-dimensional painting I can't even say that word, but similarly, trick the eye, a fashionable painting technique of the time. The peace treaty of Utrecht was about to be signed, so all the elements in the painting represent the coming of peace. The dome ceiling is an allegorical representation of peace. John, oh wait, hang on. John Churchill is the chariot. He holds a zigzag thunderbolt of war, and the woman who holds him back his arm represents peace. The walls depict all the nations of the world who have come together peacefully. Laguerre also included a self-portrait placing himself next to Dean Jones, chaplain to the first Duke, another enemy of the Duchess, although she tolerated him in the household because he could play a good hand at cards. To the right of the doorway leading into the first stateroom, Laguerre included the French spies, said to have big ears and eyes, because they may still be spying. Of the four marble door cases in the room, displaying the Duke's crest as a prince of the Holy Roman Empire, only one is by Gibbons. The other three were copied indistinguishably by the Duchess's cheaper craftsmen. Oops. Damn, these pages just never will stay. All right, hang on. I got to mix up once again. Horace Walpole, I think that's how you say his last name, saw it in 1760, shortly before capabilities. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know why that didn't show up. Okay. Okay, it doesn't matter. Shortly before capability Brown's improvements, the bridges, like the beggars at the old Duchess's gate, begs for a drop of water and is refused. Another of Vanbrugh's schemes was the great parterre, nearly a half-mile long and as wide as the south fronts. Also in the park, completed after the first Duke's death, is the Column of Victory. It is 134 feet high and terminates a great avenue of elms leading to the palace, which were planted in the position of Marlborough's troops at the Battle of Blenheim. Vanbrugh had wanted an obelisk to mark the site of the former royal manor, and the tryst of Henry II, which had taken place there, causing the first Duchess to remark, if there were obelisks to be made of, I gotta fix that B. I don't know where that came from. If there were obelisks to be made of, if there were obelisks to be made of all, I'm just having a. If there were obelisks to be made of all what our kings have done of that sort, the country would be stuffed with very odd things. The obelisk was never realized. Following the first Duke's death, the Duchess concentrated most of her considerable energies on the completion of the palace itself, and the park remained relatively unchanged until the arrival of Capability Brown in 1764. The fourth Duke employed Brown, who immediately began an English landscape garden scheme to naturalize and enhance the landscape, with tree planting and man-made undulations. However, the feature after which he is forever associated is the lake, a huge stretch of water created by damming the river Glem and ornamented by a series of cascades where the river flows in and out. The lake was narrowed at the point of Vanbrugh's Grand Bridge, but the three small canal-like streams trickling underneath it were completely absorbed by one river-like stretch. Brown's great achievement at this point was to actually flood and submerge beneath the water level the lower stories and rooms of the bridge itself, thus reducing its inconspicuous height and achieving what is regarded by many as the epitome of an English landscape. Brown also gassed over the great parterre in the great court. The latter was repaid by Duchy in the early 20th century. The first Duke, as a soldier, was not a rich man, and what fortune he possessed was mostly used for finishing the palace. In comparison with what other British ducal families, the Marlboroughs were not very wealthy, yet they existed quite comfortably until the time of the fifth Duke of Marlborough. a spendthrift who considerably depleted the family's remaining fortune. He was eventually forced to sell other family estates, but Blenheim was safe from him as it was entailed. The fifth Duke was responsible for several other garden follies and novelties. This did not prevent him selling the Marlboroughs, uh, Boccaccio, is that even how I'm pronouncing it? For a mere £875, and his own library in over 4,000 lots. On his death in 1840, his profligacy left the estate and family with financial problems. Sir William Chambers, assisted by John Yen, was responsible for the small summer house known as the Temple of Diana, down by the lake, where in 1908 Winston Churchill proposed to his future wife. Just want to give a quick shout out for everyone who's watching on my page. Let's see here. Wow, it's almost past. It's already been past 6:30, it's already way past 6:30. Wow, time certainly does go by pretty fast. Okay, I'm gonna check on the profile. Let's see who's watching on the Things Network. Okay, just want to give a quick shout out. What's going on, Ane? Vicky, good to see ya. Hey, Jeremy. Hey, Linda. Yeah, Matt, it's definitely it's definitely going to be a busy night for me. There's more to, but that's the other thing too. As soon as I'm finished with this show, my work is not complete yet, because I might actually have 2 more shows coming up later tonight. And that next show, believe it or not, is Matt Grant's show. So I will be appearing on that later tonight. I think he said around, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, I think it's going to be 7:00 my time over here. So if I got that wrong, just comment below and correct me on that. So hang on. Oh, here we go. That is so weird. So the organ in the chapel was built circa 1853 by Robert Postel of York. It is notable as a rare unaltered example of this fine builder's work, speaking boldly and clearly into a generous acoustic. Oh, thanks, Irene. By the 1870s, the Marlboroughs were in severe financial trouble, and in 1875, the seventh. Okay, I guess the picture. I guess I must have put the picture in later. In 1875, the 7th Duke sold the marriage of Cupid and Psyche, together with the famed Marlborough gems, in an auction for £10,000. However, this was not enough to save the family. In 1880, the 7th Duke was forced to petition Parliament to break the protective entail on the palace and its contents. This was achieved under the Blenheim Settled Estates Act of 1880, and the door was now open for wholesale dispersal of Blenheim and its contents. The first victim was the Great Sunderland Library, which was sold in 1882, including such volumes as the Epistles of Horace, printed at Caen, I think that's how you say it, in 1480, and the works of Josephus, printed at Verona in 1648. The 18,000 volumes raised almost £60,000. The sales continued to denude the palace. Raphael's and Saiti Madonna, I think that's I apologize for the mispronunciations, was sold for £70,000. Van Dyck's equestrian portrait of Charles I realized £17,500. And finally, the piece de resistance of the collection, Peter Paul Rubens, his wife Helena Formant, and their son Peter Paul and their son Franz, which had been given to the city of Brussels to the first Duke in 1704, was also sold and is now in the Geez, I cannot talk tonight. Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. These sums of money, vast by the standards of the day, failed to cover the depths and the maintenance of the the great palace remained beyond the Marlborough's resources. These had always been small in relation to their ducal rank and the size of their house. The British agricultural depression, which started in the 1870s, added to the family's problems. At the end of the 19th century, the palace was saved from ruin by funds gained by the ninth Duke of Marlborough's marriage to American railroad heiress Consuelo Vanderbilt. When the ninth Duke inherited it in 1892, the land was generating dwindling income. Something went really weird with the printer. I think we're about halfway through with this presentation. I mean, with the history on this place. So I think I only just got a few more pages left. We might even end just on time. Actually, I just realized. So this actually has been pretty perfect, really perfect. The third remarkable room is the Long Library, which designed by Nicholas Hawksmoor in 1722 to 75, 183 feet long, which was intended as a picture gallery. The ceiling has saucer domes, which were to have been painted by Thornhill, had the Duchess not upset him. The palace, and in particular this room, was furnished with the many valuable artifacts the Duke had been given, or sequestered as the spoils of war, including a fine art collection. Here in the library, rewriting history in her own indomitable style, the Duchess set up a larger-than-life statue of Queen Anne, its base recording their friendship. That's one of the earliest photos I was able to find of the statue when it was brand new. From the northern end of the library, in which is housed the largest pipe organ in private ownership in Europe, access is obtained to the raised colonnade which leads to the chapel H. The chapel is perfectly balanced on the eastern side of the palace by the vaulted kitchen. This symmetrical balancing and equal weight given to both spiritual and physical nourishment would no doubt have appealed to Vanburugh's renowned sense of humor, if not the Duchess's. The distance of the kitchen from even the private dining room, O on the plan, was obviously of no consideration, hot food being of less importance than to avoid having to inhale the odor of cooking in proximity of servants. The Long Library organ was built in 1891 by the famous firm of Henry Willis and Sons at a cost of £3,669. It replaced a previous organ built in 1888 by Isaac Abbott of Leeds, which was removed to St. Swithin's Church, Hither Green. Originally erected in the central bay, with its back to the water terraces, the Norwich firm of Norman and Beard moved it to the northwestern end of the library in 1902 and made a few tonal additions, and the following year cleaned it. No further changes were made until 1930, when the Willis firm lowered the pitch to modern concert pitch. A Welty automatic player was added in 1931, with 70 rolls by Marshall Dupree, Joseph Bonnet, Alfred Hollins, Edward Lamar, and Harry Goss Custard also being supplied. This remained in use for some time. The Duke of the time is said to have frequently sat at the organ bench and pretended to play the organ to his guests, and they would applaud at the end. This practice is said to have been halted abruptly when the player started before the Duke had reached the organ. This famous instrument is regularly maintained and is played by visiting organists throughout the year. Unfortunately, however, its condition is declining. A fundraising campaign has been launched for its complete restoration. I got to say, as we get closer to the end of the history of this place, I find it really amazing how, there was such difficulty, even from the start of its construction, of, how it was going to be built, who was going to build it, how it was going to be designed. And there was just so much tension that, you never really would think you never would think twice that there would be all this, tension going on between different owners, including especially between the dukes and duchesses that have owned it over the centuries. Let's see. Now, this photo right here, I believe was taken, I think it was taken back in either, I think it was either taken somewhere between the 1870s or might be sometime during the early 1900s. But I know I said before that was the earliest sketch. This is actually the oldest photo I was able to find of Blenheim Palace, sometime during the late 19th, early 20th century. Let's see here. Hang on. I'm missing a. Oh, wait a minute. I think this might be it right here. Yeah, it is. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're still good. Blenheim sits in the center of a large, undulating park, a classic example of the English landscape garden movement and style. When Vanbrugh first cast his eyes over it, I don't know if this is like repeating some of the same history or what, but we're just gonna move forward with it because we're getting close to the end. So when Vanbrugh first cast his eyes over it in 1704, he immediately conceived a typical grandiose plan. Though, oh wait, okay, yeah, that's fine. No, I thought it was showing some of the same stuff, but no, we're good. He immediately conceived a typical grandiose plan, though through the park trickled the small river Gleim, and Vanbrugh envisioned I can't even say a word. This marshy brook traversed by the finest bridge in Europe. Thus ignoring the second opinion offered by Sir Christopher Wren, the marsh was channeled into three small canal-like streams, and across it rose a bridge of huge proportions. So huge it was reported to contain some 30-odd rooms. While the bridge was indeed an amazing wonder, in this setting, it appeared incongruous, causing Alexander Pope to comment the Minows, I think that's how you say it, is under this vast arc they pass. Murmur, how like whales we look, thanks to you, Grace. Charles, ninth Duke of Marlborough, can be credited with saving both the palace and the family. Inheriting the near bankrupt dukedom in 1892, he was forced to find a quick and drastic solution to the problems. Prevented by the strict social dictates of late 19th century society from earning money, he was left with one solution. He had to marry money. In November 1896, he coldly and openly, without love, married the American railroad heiress Consuelo Vanderbilt, as I mentioned earlier. The marriage was celebrated following lengthy negotiations with her divorced parents. Her mother, uh, Alva Vanderbilt, was desperate to see her daughter a duchess, and the bride's father, William Vanderbilt, paid for the privilege. The final price was 2,500,000, 20, 20, 25. I think it's $25 million. I think that's correct. Again, I'm never good with all these prices. 76.8 million in today's dollars, and 50,000 shares of the capital stock of the Beech Creek Railway Company, with a minimum 4% dividend guaranteed by the New York Central Railroad Company. The couple were given a further annual income each of $100,000 for life. The bride later claimed that she had been locked in her room until she agreed to the marriage. The contract was actually signed in the vestry of St. Thomas Episcopal Church, New York, immediately after the wedding vows had been made. In the carriage leaving the church, Marlborough told Consuelo he loved another woman, and he would never return to America as he despised anything that was not British. All right, let me just see who's watching on this side. What's going on, Brian? It's no big deal. I completely understand. Thank you very much. Thank you. I got to be honest with you guys. This is probably one of the longest presentations I think I've ever. I'm sure as time goes by, there will be another one that will replace it. But this is obviously one of the longest I've ever done. So for those who have been listening and watching, I really do appreciate you guys. I mean, I know there's a lot involved with the history of this place, but it seems like I'm keeping. Obviously, you guys are pretty much interested. Really interested in this. So I really do appreciate it. So thank you guys. Thank you. The replenishing of Blenheim. We actually only got about let's see, just before I get started. Wow, I only got 5 pages left. Feels like I read a whole entire story. The replenishing of Blenheim began on the honeymoon itself with a replacement of the Marlborough gems. Tapestries, paintings, and furniture were bought in Europe to fill the depleted palace. I think that's how you say it again. On their return, the Duke began an exhaustive restoration and redecoration of the palace. The staterooms to the west of the saloon were redecorated with gilt boiseries in imitation of Versailles. I think that's how you say that. Vanbrugh's subtle rivalry to Louis XIV. Again, I don't know what number that is. Great Palace was now completely undermined as the interiors became mere pastiches. I think that's how you say that, of the Greater Palace. While this redecoration may have not been without faults, and the Duke later regretted it, other improvements were better received. Another problem caused by the redecoration was that the state and principal bedrooms were now moved upstairs, thus rendering the state rooms an enfilade of rather similar and meaningless drawing rooms. On the west terrace, the French landscape architect Achille Duchenne, I can't even say that, was employed to create a water garden. On a second terrace below this were placed 2 great fountains in the style of Bernini, scale models of those in the Piazza Novana, which had been presented to the first Duke. Blenheim was once again a place of wonder and prestige. However, Consuelo was far from happy. She records many of her problems in her cynical and often less than candid biography, The Glitter and the Gold. In 1906, she shocked society and left her husband, finally divorcing in 1921. She subsequently married a Frenchman, Jacques Balsan. I think that's how you say that. She died in 1964, having lived to see her son become Duke of Marlborough and frequently returning to Blenheim, uh, the house she had hated and yet saved, albeit as the unwilling sacrifice. After his divorce, the Duke married to a former friend of Consuelo, Gladys Deacon, another American. This eccentric lady was of an artistic disposition, and a painting of her eyes still remains on the ceiling of the great north portico. A lower terrace was decorated with sphinxes, modeled on Gladys and executed by W. Ward Willis in 1930. Before her marriage, while staying, so that was meant to be just a sentence before that. I mean, after that. Before her marriage, while staying with the Marlboroughs, she had caused a diplomatic incident by encouraging the young Crown Prince Wilhelm of Germany to form an attachment. The prince had given her an heirloom ring, which the combined diplomatic services of 2 empires were charged to recover. After her marriage, Gladys was in the habit of dining with the Duke with a revolver by the side of her plate. Tiring of her, the Duke was temporarily forced to close Blenheim and turn off the utilities to drive her out. They subsequently separated but did not divorce. The Duke died in 1934 and his widow in 1977. Now, the ninth Duke was succeeded by his and Consuelo Vanderbilt's eldest son, John Albert William Spencer, the 10th Duke of Marlborough. Now, interestingly, during his reign, During World War II, the 10th Duke welcomed the boys from Malvern College as evacuees, and in September 1940 allowed the security service MI5 to use the palace as its base until the end of the war. After 11 years as a widower, remarried at the age of 74 to Frances Lord Charteris, formerly the wife of the second Viscount Long and the third Earl of Dudley, and the granddaughter of the 11th Earl Wemyss. The marriage was short-lived, however, as the Duke died just 6 weeks later on March 11th, 1972. The bereaved Duchess complained of the gloom and inhospitality of Blenheim after his death and soon moved out. In her autobiography, Laughter from a Cloud, she referred to Blenheim Palace as the Dump. She died in London in 1990. Whoops. Wait a minute. Hang on one second. Yeah, I don't know. I forgot. There were a few other pictures I forgot about, so sorry about that. Okay. So that was the third. Okay, so the photo after her was, I think that was the third Earl of Dudley and the granddaughter 11th of the 11th Earl of Weymouth. Now, the reason I chose these two places in particular, because again, some of these places I chose not only were places I thought were really interesting, but also they were the location of some well-known horror films, especially in the paranormal genre. So just like Wykehurst Place, in 1973, Blenheim Palace was featured in the opening sequence of the movie The Legend of Hell House. The interior shot of the long room is the palace's library. It was the first movie to be filmed at the palace. Several other movies and TV shows have been filmed at the palace over the decades. All right, see here one second. Now, just to go back briefly in time, I mean, we are getting, again, like I said, we are getting really close to the end, but just to go back briefly, because I actually decided to save this as kind of like as a, I guess you can kind of say an interesting twist or whatever you want to call it. In 1786, George III visited Blenheim and embarked on the view from the Triumphal Arch. We have nothing to equal this. Other royal visitors included Christian the Eighth, I believe. Again, I'm terrible with these, these letters or whatever they are. The King of Denmark in 1768, Alexander I, the Emperor of Russia in 1814, Queen Adelaide in 1835, Prince Albert in 1841, Edward VIII, that's the eighth, okay, as Prince of Wales in 1859, 1870, 1873, and 1896. Edward, okay, I'm not even going to say this, the letters. Edward in 19, I don't mean any disrespect. In 1936, and Charles, Prince of Wales, in 1976, in 1980. Oops, sorry, I forgot one more. And Charles, Prince of Wales, in 1976 and 1981. Even as a building site, Blenheim became an object of popular tourism. And in 1720, an Oxford man complained of his recurrent obligation to take visitors there. So I had a message. I'll answer that later. From the outset, the building was recognized as a public monument, and in 1712, the Duke directed his comptroller of works, Henry Jones, to show visitors round without fee. Later, the Duchess accused Jones of profiting handsomely. One notable visitor refused admission on the Duchess's order was Vanbrugh, who had to view his work from over the park wall in 1725, is what I mentioned earlier. Guidebooks, at first published as annexes to Oxford tours, proliferated from the mid-18th century. Complaints about the crowds of tourists and the rudeness and venality of porters and guides were common, and fees were regarded as exorbitant. I think that's how you say it. In the later 18th century, the family maintained some privacy. Um, oh, wait a minute. I forgot to add this too. Just want to make sure I'm not going ahead. Yeah, oh no, we're good. In the later 18th century, the family maintained some privacy by restricting opening hours to a brief period in the afternoon. But the park was open most days, and there was also a series of public days in the late summer. Throughout its history, the palace and grounds were made available for local celebrations and other public events. Distinguished tourists were sometimes received by the family, but in 1802, the reclusive Fort Duke deeply offended Nelson by sending out uh, refreshments to him in the park. By contrast, the King of Saxony was received in 1844 with a 21 gun salute. The fifth Duke shocked some visitors by letting shooting and fishing by the hour, and his successor caused outrage by raising the entry fee, which was restored in 1856 to once and remained unchanged until the First World War. The fees were given to charities such as the Radcliffe Infirmary, Oxford. Damage and theft by visitors was a recurrent problem, which is not surprising, of course. Um, in 1913, the park was exceptionally closed to the public because of a threat of damage by suffragettes. I don't even know. I've never even heard of that word. Um, this was another. This was probably again. This is another early photo. I think of when, at the time of early photography, they actually were able to photograph tourism when it was occurring at that. When it was open during that period. The family resided more frequently from the late 19th century, and public access to the palace was curtailed. From the 1920s, only the grounds were open and tourism declined sharply. When the palace was reopened on April 1st, 1950, it attracted large crowds, and by the 1980s, there were over 350,000 visitors a year. All right, we're down to the last page. The palace remains the home of the Dukes of Marlborough, the present incumbent of the title being Charles James Jamie Spencer Churchill, 12th Duke of Marlborough. Charles James succeeded to the dukedom upon his father's death on October 16, 2014. Lord Edward Spencer Churchill, the brother of the current Duke, wished to feature a contemporary art program within the historic setting of the palace, where he spent his childhood. He founded Blenheim Art Foundation, BAF, a nonprofit organization to present large contemporary art exhibitions. BAF launched on October 1st of 2014 with the UK's largest ever exhibition by I can't even say that. The foundation was conceived to give a vast number of people access to innovative contemporary artists working in the context of this historic palace. As of October 2016, the Marlboroughs still have to tender a copy of the French royal flag to the monarch of the anniversary of the Battle of Blenheim as rent for the land that Blenheim Palace stands on. Now, to finally conclude this part of what Blenheim Palace is of today, the stunningly beautiful Blenheim Palace Park and Gardens are open to the public on payment of an entry fee, maximum £24 and $24.90 as of October of, once again, 2016. Separation of tourist entertainment attractions, the pleasure gardens from the palace ensures that the atmosphere of a large country house is retained. The palace is linked to the gardens by a miniature railway, the Blenheim Park Railway. The public has free access to about 5 miles of public rights of way through the Great Park area of the grounds, which are accessible from Old Woodstock and from the Oxfordshire Way, and which are close to the Column of Victory. And that right there, guys, concludes definitely one of the longest history presentations. We went over a few minutes once again, but we will be. I have one. I have one more page, obviously, and one more slide. Now, all the history that you guys have heard of for tonight, and again, a lot of the tension that occurred with this place, with the different dukes and duchesses. It is no surprising to me that even such a beautiful location like this is truly haunted. I know Charlotte Underwood was watching earlier, and a place like this would, I mean, even a place like this would have to be haunted, especially, after standing for over 200 years or so. So, Spencer Churchill, interestingly enough, is well aware of his residence being a haunted hotspot and will occasionally allow ghost hunters to conduct investigations. I must say, hopefully, I will be coming out to the UK real soon and, learning a lot about this place. I even thought to myself, this has got to be a place I got to investigate. I mean, but at the same time, imagine, all the many different spots that you're allowed to go to that you can investigate. I mean, it's just like it would probably be like an overwhelming feeling for me because it's like, will I even be able to investigate this entire place? It's massive, as you can see. But some of these paranormal investigators have come away with interesting results that suggest this elegant house is most certainly haunted. Now, some of the rooms, I couldn't find a lot of the stories. I guess the only stories I was able to find paranormal wise were probably the most notorious rooms. I did try looking a little bit further, but these were really the only ghost stories I was able to find. But I'm sure there are many more. They probably just didn't write them down. So, one room in particular, the Dean Jones room. Since the 19th century, the Dean Jones room has been considered the most haunted room in the palace. The ghost of a kindly old man, thought to be the first Duke's personal chaplain, has been encountered in the room. He is said to, excuse me, he is said to sit in a chair rocking and quietly reading his Bible. According to a number of guests, he looks up from his book and with a nod and a smile, he acknowledges their presence. He then slowly fades away. And considering Winston Churchill spent a great deal of time in this room, it's a good chance he experienced the spirit at least once. The Roundhead. The spirit of a Roundhead soldier has been seen stalking the halls and corridors of the palace. The ghost of the soldier has also been witnessed most commonly huddling by the fireplace and appears to be warming himself. Sometimes other Roundhead soldiers have also been seen as well, as those they are discussing plans. It's possible that this out of place Civil War soldier isn't so much associated with the palace, but rather from the land the palace sits on. Just echo caught forever in time, which is no surprising. I mean, as paranormal investigators and people, and historians even, you look at these, if you look at locations like this and see not only how much history has gone by, but you look at the paranormal activity that occurs, it's not always going to occur at the particular house or the building itself. You know, it's not only like that, obviously, for just in Europe, but, it's like that, here in North America as well. I think it's probably like that just about all over the world, in fact, that we later find out that a house or a building like that, or a building had been built over some type of either historical or sacred land, something that may have once stood there, or, may have, there may have been some type of event, obviously a civil war, such as the Battle of Blenheim that occurred. So it's no surprising to me. The unseen force. According to the haunted history of the palace, poltergeist activity also makes a part of the paranormal qualities of the property. Royal commissioners were meeting at the palace when they were disturbed in a most unexpected way. As they met, a sudden strong, cold wind blew through the building. Suddenly, a violent, unseen force began throwing objects around the room. Books and heavy furniture seemed to have a life of their own as they moved about as they moved about the room. Terrified by this experience, the commissioners fled from the palace and never returned. Um, Ghost hunts are occasionally allowed, but the Duke makes one request, and this is something I think it's probably best for a lot of you guys who are watching, and if whether you plan on going to the UK or for my paranormal brothers and sisters who live in the UK who either have never been to this place or are planning to in the future, that the Duke makes one request, and that is you respect his home and the ghost that he shares with. And that concludes the end. So that was wow. That was quite a presentation. Okay, so I'm gonna just let me just see here. To conclude for tonight, as I always do, let's give a quick see if anybody else was watching. Thanks, Linda. Thank you, Irene. Let me just go to the my personal profile because again, for some reason, the comments are just not coming through. Let's see. Who do we got? Who do we have? Yes, Matt, I still am planning on joining your show. I'm actually going to be ending this in just a minute or so. I just got one final thing to add for tonight. Like I said, as I always do with my show, I usually will often show the trailer. So let me just find it very quickly. I should have had this ready right before I went live. So, but I just want to say, as I'm getting this ready, I really appreciate you guys, taking the time of coming in, of checking this out again. I know this was quite a long longer than usual presentation. So seriously, I can't thank you guys enough. So we're gonna end it soon after the stupid ad, of course. We're gonna end it here with the trailer of The Legend of Hell House. So definitely a film you guys may want to check out. I just want to make sure that this is appropriate because the last one I almost ended up showing something that I did not want to show under any circumstances. Now, interestingly, this movie, Legend of Hell House, is I've never seen this movie, but once again, as I'm getting this ready, let's see if I got it right. Yes, I do. Okay, so this should be appropriate to show because I did find out this movie is rated PG. So it's I hope so. All right, let me just get this ready to go. Yeah, Matt, as I'm about to end this, I do apologize. I should have said earlier before that I did have my show, but like I said, we're just about to end anyway, so it doesn't matter. All right, let me just share the screen. Okay, I just want to make sure that the screen this time it actually is showing. What's up, Eddie? Sorry, I didn't see you there. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right. Hang on one second. I don't know why I don't know why that's showing up, but we'll get rid of that. Okay, here we go. What in the name of God? Oh, that's pretty creepy.
What you to make this house so evil? Murder, vampirism, cannibalism, drug addiction, alcoholism, sadism, mutilation. How did it end? If it had ended, we would not be here.
Wow.
He's inside me. Even as I'm speaking to you, I can feel him just waiting in there to take over.
It's really cool to see that Roddy McDowell's in this.
It almost succeeded. I don't accept this. I do not accept this. Naked, drunk, fighting.
Legend of Hell House. And there's that's Wykehurst's place, right on the outside of the building. So yeah, definitely a very creepy film. So I can't even show. I do have a DVD. One day I will be checking this out. So there's probably, I think they pretty much had a pretty good reason of why they wanted to choose this place for the film. Okay, so again, I forgot to even mention. So for next week, we're gonna be for next week's show. We got, let's see what we have here. What do we have next? Bear with me for just a sec. Okay, for next week, we might actually do 2 locations again. One is of a historic building, and the other is a place that does have, ghost stories associated with it. We're going to be looking at, I think that you pronounce it as the Dunsmuir Hellman Historic Estate, or the Dunsmuir House. And then there was also the, what is that place called? I can't remember. I can't remember the exact name of the building, but it's located down in New Mexico. So that will, once again, 2 other locations that have been used for paranormal films. And yeah, so, but I'm going to get off here again. For those who've been watching, I really do appreciate you guys taking the time of tuning in. Again, I know that was a lot to talk about, and I'm sorry that my face is as white as a ghost once again. I'm broadcasting this down in a different area this time, but no, seriously, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. And if you guys want to check it, you guys want to see what I have next coming up. In addition, like I said, I'm going to be on Matt TV in probably less than just a few minutes, actually. So I got another show I got to jump on, and we might also be doing another show possibly later tonight on the Things Network, if I'm correct on that. I don't know if it's changed or not. It's in regards to Saving Waverly Hills Sanatorium, and of course, different hosts from this network will be on. I'll probably be joining on as well to give support. So again, thank you guys so much. I'm really glad you guys enjoyed it. Hey, what's up, Chrissy? Good to see you. Less said. I had to say it, Chrissy. And also, I almost forgot one other thing. In case you guys don't know this, but tomorrow is actually my birthday. So got quite an exciting day coming up. So I really can't appreciate you guys. I can't appreciate you guys enough. So but anyways, I'm gonna get off here because again I got another show to join. But you guys can either see me back in just a few minutes. Thanks, Chrissy. I'll see you guys probably back in just a few minutes, or and then tomorrow for Petri Dish. My mind's just going all over the place. We got Daniel Clace coming on, owner of the Hinsdale House, who's also a very good friend of mine. So it'll be good seeing him again. But who knows? We'll probably celebrate my birthday on the network. You never know. Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate it. But until then, aside from those shows, again, thank you guys all again, and I will see you guys next week. So you guys all have a great night.